move as less as possible. Pretty much everything that we've all been hearing for pretty much every single day we wake up. So,
Yeah, right.
um,
Yeah, and
hopefully
I
the
mean, I don't
force will
want
be with
to.
them. And
Yeah, I don't want to beat everybody over the head with this thing. I mean, we get enough of it on television, obviously, but I mean, it is a big thing that's going on in the world right now, and certainly it's affecting everything from all the major things, everybody's employment, all the way down to even this show. We've been doing it a little
mhm,
bit of social distancing. Hopefully next week
definitely.
we're still gonna stream, but we're gonna do it a little bit differently. We're gonna go back a little bit to our old set, our format, and everything. We'll see. Maybe we'll even wear masks. Do you have a Star Wars mask?
No, I don't. I probably need one. I probably want to wear like a first order helmet at this point.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, I know you've had some friends that have it. I have some friends that
hmm
have it. So it's really affecting everything. So hopefully, we could take your mind off of it for an hour, maybe two. I know the people on Twitch would like us to go probably like 3 hours, but we'll see. We'll see how the conversation goes.
Make
But what
this
do
a
you
Rise of
think?
Skywalker
Yeah,
podcast.
right. All right. So you want to go to the cantina?
Hey, definitely need a drink.
Let's do it. All right. What do we got first?
All right, man. So, this week in the can mentioned before, the High Republic characters have been finally revealed to us. This has been something that, we've all been kind of waiting and clamoring for. Once they released the fact that this is where they were going, the direction the Star Wars franchise was going in. First, it was called Project Luminous, and now it's the High Republic, which takes place about 400 years before the events of the Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
And we already have some key characters kind of lined up for us. So I'm going to read some of the names of these characters. And I know we're actually going to provide the link to this, on the show.
Oh, yeah,
So you
definitely.
guys can
But
kind of
make
double back
sure,
and check this out.
right, when you do read them, if you could tell us a little bit about them, if we know a little bit about them.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Go
No
for it.
problem. All right. So the first one is Avara Chris. Avara is the brightest, most noble example of Jedihood. She tries to see the good in people and situation and never puts herself first. She is invigorated about life on the frontier, the challenges it brings, and is an inspiration for those who work with her. She's compassionate, not dogmatic, and always ready to sacrifice herself over others. Avara Chris is the best of the best. So she kind of almost sounds like Ray a little bit.
That's what I was going to say. It definitely has kind of a Ray vibe to me. But you know what's going to be interesting to me? I mean, and then I know you got to
Hmm?
get to the rest of these guys, but it's going to be interesting because they keep promising that this is going to be like different than any other kind of Jedi we've ever seen, that it's going to be, like this more noble and they're going to be like at the height of their power and all this. So I'm really wondering, how are
Yeah.
they going to differ from, say, a Rey, an Anakin, Obi-Wan, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, first of all, I think when I read this, the first thing that kind of comes to my mind is like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table type vibe,
Exactly.
where they're
Exactly.
more the gallant type vibe, especially when you look at some of the artwork and the swords and stuff like that. It definitely puts you in the mind of King Arthur to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we're going to see is just pretty much a lot of delving into the forest, which is I'm really interested to see because so far, we know just enough about the forest, but we really don't know that much in depth. And I think this would be the medium to actually um, get that type of information and really see what it's like. I would love to see the Jedi trials in this. I mean, I think this would be a perfect um, time to actually see the physical, the mental, the emotional, all the things that kind of goes into becoming an actual Jedi.
Yeah, because I'll
And
tell you,
then
I
just
mean, for me, the Jedi
mhm,
trial thing, it's funny that you bring this up because the only time that we've ever seen it is in the Clone Wars. Or,
yeah,
no, it was Rebels, right? Or was it the Clone Wars?
no, it was
No, I
Clone
don't
Wars.
remember. It
It
was
was
Clone.
Clone Wars.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Where
Yeah,
it
that's when
was like
they
a whole
the
story
younglings
arc.
had to build their
Yep.
lightsabers, and
Yeah.
yeah, they had to go to get the kyber crystals and everything like that. We kind of saw part of it. We've often read about the different things as far as physically, wearing them out and all that type of stuff. So, yeah, I think that's what we're really going to see with this particular venture from Star Wars is that they're really going to just focus on the order itself as far as hierarchy. I think we're really going to see a lot of the inner workings as far as like the political, the dogmas and stuff of the Jedi, which is really interesting too. And then I think, like I said, with that, you're going to be able to see um, the Jedi at their zenith, at their full power, their full strength. So I think that's really going to be cool.
I hope so.
But let's
So yeah,
see.
now who's the second character?
I know, right? So next one is Loden Greatstorm. Uh,
Man,
Loden
that sounds
Greatstorm is
so
a
Lord of the
Twi'lek.
Rings to me. That is completely a Lord of the Rings name to me. But go
It
ahead.
is definitely, and it's considered, Loden is considered to be one of the best teachers in the Order. Strong and wise with a good sense of humor. Loden looks at every moment as a learning experience, always trying to better himself and those around him, especially his Padawans. He kind of, looks like Kit Fisto, and Kit Fisto kind of always kind of had that big smile.
Hmm.
He seems to be like the more the fun-loving Jedi, which is it's really cool. And you really don't see that too much. You really see more of the Jedi more serious or kind of stoic, where to finally see one who kind of has a little bit of a sense of humor, who kind of jokes around with stuff. We saw that with Anakin. He was kind of more sarcastic and funny in his own way. And of course,
Yes.
Ahsoka was kind of had that attribute as well. But most of the other Jedi were kind of, straightforward, straight laced. But uh, this seems that one that really interests me actually. Like out of all of these, that's the one I kind of really want to see. The next one is Keeve Trennis. Keeve is a young firebrand Jedi believed to have a great future ahead of her if she would only believe in herself. Quick witted and mostly impulsive than she should be. Keith has only been a Jedi Knight for a few weeks and is a little Star Trek around Avar. Knowing many of the things that Chris has done in the past, she is determined to prove herself to Avar and to the other legendary Jedi stationed on the Starlight Beacon. But first, she must learn to trust herself as much as she trusts the Force.
Hmm.
So this kind of gives me Ahsoka vibes.
Definitely. Definitely. And it's going to
Yeah,
be
this definitely kind
interesting
of gives me.
to me to see the different has their relationships, in the original well, there's really no Jedi there really, but so like in the prequels and the Clone Wars, a little bit in Rebels. But I think what's going to be interesting about this is they're not at war like they are in the movies and the TV series that we've seen. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
going to be interesting to see the dynamic of the relationship because you're not seeing a
True.
fractured Jedi group. You're seeing these guys at
Yes.
like the height of their power. And I don't know. I just think that this is going to be a really exciting uh, series. And because it's cross platform, it's going over all kinds of books. Maybe we'll see a movie, you know? I mean, I just
Yeah. I
think
mean,
it's going to
I
be really
really
cool.
can't. I really can't wait to get to the books of this. I mean, because even so far, I've made mention that I was reading the Jedi Lost book,
Yeah. How's
and
that coming?
that is really interesting. It's good, man. It's really good. It's really interesting to see kind of like what Dooku was like and what he kind of had to deal with growing up, because it kind of flashes back between him being an adult, but also like his upbringing as he's kind of explaining it to Asajj Ventress is pretty much like what his child life was like, um, and just his attitude and demeanor even as a kid,
Hmm.
being a Padawan and everything like that, and his relationship with the Jedi and just how his mindset came to be and what he struggled with. And so, we all see Dooku as how he is as an adult, as a seasoned veteran, former Jedi, now turned Sith Lord, but now, you kind of get an insight of what his childhood was like. So that's been really cool.
Yeah. And for me, it's like I I am really fascinated by the Dooku thing, and of course that was started by Master and Apprentice, which is another novel
Yes.
that it was really
Yep.
dealing with the relationship between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, but you got a little bit of shades of what Dooku was like as a master teaching Qui-Gon, and it made me just really want to learn more about him and what his whole thing was about. But in the interest of halfway through the Rise of Skywalker novel, and I could tell you
Okay.
there's a lot in there. It's worth reading.
Okay.
It's like if only this were
Okay.
in the movie, I think that people, all this stuff, all the little plot holes that we were talking about and how everybody's been talking about it, they're filled. Like even you remember
Oh
the whole
wow.
part where they were sinking in that whole sand thing and
Mm-hmm.
everybody was sitting there going, "Well, how come they just didn't use the force? How come she didn't use the force to pull him up?" That was like a big criticism. The novel answers that. Like after they sank and they were okay and stuff, she was all like, "Man, why didn't I just use the force?" So,
Like even she realized that.
yeah,
Like,
she even realized it. And there's a couple of different plot holes in there too. The Leia Rey dynamic, really cool in the book. Which of course, they could do
Okay.
it because they're not shackled by, leftover footage basically. But it's
that
a
in
little bit of a
time too.
detour.
You got to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't wait to read that one as well. So once I finish Dooku, I'll pick up
Yeah,
the
we'll
Rise of
switch.
Skywalker and knock that
Because
out.
I'll probably end up
Yeah, there we
reading the
go. We
Dooku
just.
book and yeah.
Yep, there you go. All right. So the next High Republic Jedi is Stellan. I don't know if it's Geo. I'm going to say Geo or Geos. Not sure how they're going to pronounce it, but Stellan is an optimistic and well-respected Jedi Master. Stellan came up through the Jedi Order with Avar Kriss, and although they are often on different assignments for the Jedi or the Republic, when the two work together, they're a powerhouse team of two noble heroes in action. Strong in the Force and a natural teacher, Stellan is currently stationed at one of the Jedi Temple outposts on the distant planet of Kargan Viner.
Yes.
And he looks kind of like he kind of has he kind of gives me Obi-Wan vibes a bit.
That's what I was going to
He's
say.
but in a he kind of gives me the Obi-Wan vibe, but he looks a little bit more that dashing D'Artagnan-ish kind of Three Musketeers vibe, from him as well.
Well, and I
And
think
then
that's
the
what
last one.
we're gonna get.
Okay.
We're gonna get a lot of that. A lot of that, Three Musketeers kind of thing, peppered in with some Lord of the Rings. I think it's gonna be
Yep.
like this very noble King Arthur's court kind of thing going.
Definitely. And the last one we have is Vernestra Rowe. Vern is a newly minted Jedi Knight. Vernestra Milan was a Padawan to Stellan. She works hard and is devoted to the Jedi Order, but more so than others at her age. At 16 years old, she's one of the youngest knights in the generation. She struggles to fit in with the adults while also setting a good example for the younger Jedi. So she's definitely, a younger teenager, being 16 years old. You can get some kind of Ahsoka vibes from her too.
I was
Also,
gonna say
maybe a bit,
Ahsoka, a little Qui-Gon.
or Ezra.
Yeah, yeah,
I could see
I could see that.
Ezra out of that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the characters for the High Republic as far as been released to us. I believe we're going to actually see Yoda in this. That's one of the big talks that we're actually going to see a Yoda that's roughly around 500 years old. This whole show is actually titled is Yoda Reborn. So this is one of the things that we're talking about is for seeing Yoda in different phases of his life. I think that's what we're really going to get, but I'm going to kind of save that conversation for a little bit later. But in this, it's pretty much kind of, I'll probably say maybe 75% that they're saying that he's going to pop up in there at around like maybe 500 years old.
you would have to. I mean, because if you think about it, Yoda is still the most prominent of all the Jedi, and you get the sense that he's been that way for quite a long time. And now that we have the whole Baby Yoda thing and know that Baby Yoda's like 50 years old and he's still essentially a toddler, it kind of makes you wonder now, well, how old does this species have to be before it's like maybe in its 20s or 30s compared to a human? So,
Yeah.
Maybe a 500-year-old Yoda is like a 30-year-old man,
Right.
So, I mean, it's really going to be
definitely.
fascinating.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can't wait, and I can't wait to see the type of how they portray him. Like, I mean, I'm sure he's still going to be wise, but like, I see him being a little bit more rambunctious too, because he knows he's powerful. And I love to see kind of like, you know, a young wild Yoda, wildish, I should say, Yoda, as opposed to, and then like, you kind of you start to appreciate, you know, Yoda at Empire Strikes Back, where now he's like, okay, and when he's giving all these lessons, you see where it comes from. It's like, okay, he's
Hmm.
really experienced this either through himself or watching other Jedi kind of go through it. You can see the whole spectrum of his knowledge. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm interested, really interested for that.
Yeah. And I'm curious to see Yoda also interacting with this new group of characters
Mm-hmm.
because he's going to be a little bit more in his prime. So these guys, while they may not necessarily be equal to him, they're going to be a lot closer, because by the time of the
Mm-hmm.
prequels, he's like this old wizened master. I mean, sure, you got Mace Windu, who's a little bit of his contemporary, but I don't know. I just think it's going to be really cool. And the fact that it's going to go through books, I think comics, who knows? We might have end up seeing a movie or a TV series or something. It's going to be really
Yeah.
interesting. But what about you guys? I mean, you could chat with us right now, actually, no matter where you're watching.
Yep.
If you're on Facebook or, you know, geez, where else are we going? Well, of course, our YouTube channel, Twitter, Twitch. We just got on Twitch, so that's going to be kind of cool. We're actually probably going to do some Twitch centric, that's kind of tough to say, Twitch centric shows because Twitch is, kind of its own little thing. And we actually want to be a part of the community there. So we're going to do that. Of course, we're going to have our YouTube content. We're just going to start doing a bunch of other stuff. I mean, hey, let's face it. We have the time right now. So we're going to try to take advantage of it. All right. What do we got next?
All right. So we once mentioned about Colin Trevorrow and his particular script for what was to be Duel of the Fates.
Mm-hmm.
And now, we know that has been turned into some sort of animation. So we talked about, like, first of all, we talked about the script and how good, I've often wondered, like, okay, if they turn this and they've made this into an animation, like a full-on animation of the story of Duel of the Fates, would Disney release it? Because now it's technically competing with The Rise of Skywalker. So although I think fans might be clamoring and really, really want to see this thing
I really
come to
want to see
fruition.
this thing.
Yeah, I know, right? So, but it's just kind of like, well, you have to look at it from the standpoint of like, from as a business model, like, okay, well, what if this thing takes off better than Rise of Skywalker, but Rise of Skywalker is considered canon. So essentially, you almost have two forms of canon out there, which I know they're definitely
Yeah.
trying to stay away from. So, do you? I mean, of course, we want this, but do you think it should happen?
Okay, so the question is, do I think it should happen or do I think it could
Yes.
happen?
Well, let's go. Let's play both sides.
All right.
It's Star Wars, whatever.
Well, and even that answer is a little strange because if you think about it, as far as should it happen, you know, you want it to happen as a fan because, first of all, make no mistake, if we had read this leaked script and it was like, it's all right, but thank goodness they did The Rise of Skywalker, you wouldn't hear anything else. It would be like, okay, whatever. The problem is, this script actually looks like it's superior. Like, if it was made into a movie, it would actually have been a better movie. It would have been a better Episode 9. Now, granted, you got to take that with a grain of salt because you're talking about a script versus a finished movie. So you can't really compare the two because, for all you know, they could have completely botched up the execution. And because of that, it's really not the apple to apple comparison that you would really need to make. However, since all we have is a script, it really does look like it would have been a superior movie. And even though this animation is a little, comical and it's it's made to show you what it could have looked like, but at the same time, it's also making little jokes and it's a little spoofy. It shows you, like, oh man, this thing could have been really good. And from that standpoint, as a fan, I would like to see it in some capacity. But even if Disney said, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's just, why not? It's a way to capitalize on episode 9, right? To give them like an alternate universe take. But now the problem is it's going to further convolute everything. Because if you think about it, one of the problems they had when they were releasing the standalone films is that people didn't know. Like, I remember when Rogue One came out, everybody was like, man, is that the sequel to 7? Why isn't Luke in it? And people didn't understand that, no, the saga films are coming out every other year. And then in between those, you're going to get these standalone stories. Now, they were very clear with the marketing, but still, nobody really understood it. So could you imagine what would happen if they released an alternate episode 9? I think the most that you could get would maybe be a comic series, but that would be about it. But, and I mean, that kind of ties into the whole could it happen too. There is no way on this earth that Disney is going to release it. They can't even release the original theatrical versions of the original trilogy. They're definitely not, because you got to think about it this way too. They're not going to dump a bunch of money to confuse the fans and risk further polarizing them. That's the other problem that they have, is that even though there was a lot of people that either didn't like The Rise of Skywalker or at worst, they were just critical of it, you still, overall, people were like, okay, this is a good, fun movie. So the fan base is receptive to newer Star Wars stuff again. And I don't think Disney is going to risk that. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Or what do you all think out there and that's watching the stream?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, man. I think that's really, encompasses pretty much everything I could say and even more. Uh, yeah, I don't think they're going to risk confusing the fans, especially the ones who are new, to the Star Wars franchise. It's only going to confuse them even the more that you got two different, pretty much, endings for this thing, and from two different directors, and I could even see if they had like an alternate ending from JJ, but like two completely different stories. Yeah, it's going to really, and then of course, now it kind of puts a wedge even more so because remember everybody was looking at the comparison between JJ and Rian Johnson, but that's just because, and they did two completely separate movies, stories, everything that had nothing. I mean, they had something to do with each other, but like at least JJ was a part of that and everything like that, so he kind of knew where the story was going. If you do this, now you're basically putting Colin Trevorrow up against JJ and saying like, okay, almost like a duel of the fates type thing, like literally, like whose was better, I mean, and that's just you wouldn't want to do that to the Star Wars
right, and then
franchise.
everything
That would
is
be
like
crippling.
Yeah, it's competing with itself, and it would risk. There's just all kinds of doors that it would open. I mean, the problem is they chose the wrong episode 9, in my opinion. It really makes you wonder what it was that made them doubt this so much that, they would let him go. Because if you actually think back to all that stuff, it's really weird to remember back when he was let go. Talking about Colin Trevorrow right now. What was the deal?
Yeah,
This is great.
I remember. Well, I remember like because we were when they first announced the directors. First of all, it's like, okay, we were really happy for the directors because like, all right, J.J. Abrams, cool, we love his work. He's a huge Star Wars fan. We've seen what he's done with other franchises like Star Trek and whatnot, and how he's just pretty much revitalized that franchise. So we were like, okay, with him being a Star Wars fan, this would be gold. And it was. I mean, from everything from the marketing and everything that they did for The Force Awakens, it was a hit. Then all right, Ryan Johnson steps in. We liked Ryan Johnson to begin with. Um, a lot of people were excited about Ryan Johnson at first, and then they got the film, and then they weren't happy at all. Well, a lot of people weren't happy, and so now it's like, all right, and part of me wonders if this move to bring JJ back was just because they knew JJ was successful. They thought Ryan would be. He wasn't. So then now, do you take that risk again with Colin Trevorrow? Or do
Yeah.
you play it safe with the guy who got you started in the first place and who got you the hit? It's like changing producers on an album or something like that. Like, this guy, I know he can deliver a hit album for me. Or do I go with this different producer who's going to give me a different sound, so to speak, but you just don't know how the public's going to receive it.
Well, the other
And I
thing you
think
got to
that's
look
probably
at,
like one of the biggest things.
yes, because, and I don't remember what the movie was. There was a movie that Colin Trevorrow had done, like right before he was about to start on Star Wars, and it flopped, or at least it didn't do as well. And I remember they were a little bit nervous because, yeah, they were just coming off of this Ryan Johnson thing. But here's what's interesting, and anybody out there can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was let go before The Last Jedi was released, which would mean that the whole performance disappointment or whatever of The Last Jedi wouldn't have factored into it. So I think it was just they were unsure of the script or something. I don't know. And it is
Maybe.
a little out there.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, and once again, I think that, he did Jurassic World.
Yeah, which was a runaway
and
success.
that was such a huge, runaway success. Exactly. And so I think that's why everybody was like, all right, cool. We love what he did with that huge franchise. And so I was like, okay, Star Wars might be the next big thing. But then, like you said, if he had a movie that flopped right before he began, people might be like, ugh, I'm not sure. And once again, it's just like you're playing with this. And as big as Jurassic Park is, it still isn't Star Wars. It's just not as iconic as Star Wars. I mean, you really don't hear a whole lot of people quoting Jurassic Park lines, but people run around all day and create like Star Wars memes. And, it's a phenomenon. It's just,
I've said it before.
Bigger than a lot of what people think.
Exactly. I've said it before. I will say it again. Star Wars is a different animal. You can't just bring in a really good director. And it can't even be a good big franchise director either. It's got to be, I don't know. There's like a quality that you have to have with the storytelling, with the way that you just the way that you handle everything. Star Wars is a special thing, and you can't just get anybody. And again, a lot of this has to do with, you got to remember, the first 6 movies were done by one guy. I mean, granted, he brought in different directors, but George Lucas is the one that oversaw every aspect of it, and that can't be ignored.
Well, and the biggest thing is that, see, and you bring up a valid point. The biggest thing is that, see, I think all of the guys are great directors. Mm-hmm. The problem is that they all wrote the story. See, yes. George had the story,